CEO Wisdom Pod with OpenAuto's founder and CEO, Souren Khetcho. He has an interesting background. He is the only Souren I speak in my whole life, so I'm honored for that. Apparently, Souren is from Armenia, this beautiful country. I just Googled it up and the mountains and everything. Now he's in BC, Vancouver, most precisely in Canada. Souren, can you introduce yourself? Tell us a bit more about OpenAuto and tell us about what you're up to nowadays.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Charles. Thanks for having me. So my as you introduced me, my name is Soren. One just highlight is that my background is Armenian, but I grew up in Syria. I've lived in the Middle East. Almost my half of my life,
Wow.
more than half of my life. I lived until I was a teenager there before I left from Syria because of the war. I lived about 4 years into the war. 2014 is when, or three and a half. August 2014 is when I left, and I became a UN refugee in Lebanon before coming to Canada. Stayed in Lebanon for a year and 2 months before I made it here in Vancouver, BC. It's a journey where it teaches you a lot about life in general, and how the world really works, and you get exposed to the geopolitical landscape of the Middle East very early on, and that kind of sets who you are in a way, and teaches you to uh, you have to rely on yourself because you never know whether there's going to be tomorrow. Yeah, and then after that, I when I came to Lebanon, I started finding ways to teach myself how to write software, and specifically I was interested in cybersecurity and pen testing, and I didn't really have any equipment, or I didn't have a laptop, or I was working off of my phone, uh you know in ways borrowing internet from our neighbors and downloading YouTube videos to teach myself how to do stuff, because the internet was so slow. um yeah, and then I was fortunate to be able to acquire a laptop. um My dad sold his car in Syria, and then we used that money to buy the laptop, and that kind of expanded my knowledge and gave me something that I could uh, learn more and practice, just more than just a phone, because you can't really do anything on a Samsung. And then yeah, I did a lot of I used to spend sometimes almost always about 18 hours a day, because I didn't really have anything else. I wasn't really doing it. I was fortunate to go to a high school, but I always felt like I was like an outsider. Um, I didn't do well. I failed that grade, and I wasn't doing well, and it was my decision to say, like, why don't I just focus on what matters, what I think that matters, and teach myself. And that's really how I expanded my knowledge, and that's really what kicked off this journey.
Wow. I didn't expect that. The war, right? Must have when people at the top take decisions and it affects people at the bottom. I think that's exactly like the what people mean by that people at the top, they don't really care, it's just like, oh, we're in our offices taking decisions, and but in the end these decisions, they impact the lives of people. And I mean, I've seen documentary about the war, but I've not been
Yeah,
there physically. Must have
yeah,
been ludicrous. And to try to live a
yeah.
normal life in these conditions, right? And
You can't, like, it's impossible for you to even consider that it's normal, because one day you are here, the next day you might not be here,
yeah,
and you have to live with that fact, every hour of the day. So
It's kind of stoicness on another level. Did you had like friends and family that went through not so cool experiences, let's call them that way, with the war?
oh, all of us have some stories in one way or another of being impacted by the war. I mean, even me, like the area we lived in Aleppo was basically in kind of like the red zone between the government and the opposition. And obviously that's a battle zone, right? Because that's where all, if you go outside of these zones, it's usually slightly safer. But the closer you are to that conflict zone, the worse it is. And that, I've got shot at by the sniper. You have to, when you're gonna go to school, gonna have to run crossing the street, because guess what? Sometimes he's there, sometimes he's not there. He shot a fucking cat, so that's something that tells you about him. So sometimes he's there, sometimes he's not there. You have to take that into consideration. Same as yeah, you know what they the weapons that they use, and both sides, it's very, very inhumane. And we were walking, and it happened many times where an explosion happens like right in front of us. We have to then take shelter. You have to take shelter, although, because the shards and the pieces starts coming down. And I've had people that I knew who were impacted. Like explosion happened, nothing happened to them immediately, and then something goes into their body after, coming down from the sky. Things like you don't think about, right? Things that if you haven't gone through it, you don't think like, oh yeah, that's true. Big piece. Sometimes, like, I had a collection, literally a bag of shards and bullets and stuff. If you shoot in the sky, whatever is gonna go up, it's gonna come down. And I've even had I've heard stories where somebody's is buying vegetables, and out of nowhere, right, a bullet kills him. Like, just comes down and kills him. But it was there was the life there, because you don't know what the sky is going to bless you with. Maybe with sunshine, maybe not. Maybe it will take the sunshine from your eyes. So it's something that, obviously there's and that really teaches you how to appreciate life too. Because every day that you stay alive, even though that it wasn't the best life, and you still appreciate that you're alive.
But does that also cause an underlying anxiety? That you, even up to this day, you're safe in Canada, safest country on earth. Do you still like have this sort of PTSD when you walk in the streets, or this uncertainty?
Not to my safety, at least. Like, at least I can walk without worrying that I might not walk next moment. From things like, explosions or something coming to your head. So, however, here in Canada, like, I never really experienced like true PTSD. Like, only a couple of times actually happened where, I literally woke up in the middle of the night thinking that I was in that zone. But that's really it. Like, I haven't really experienced like hard PTSD, you know. I had it, and I would say this, like, me and my parents would probably had it, you know, worse than some people, but much better than some people. I know people that really, really change their life, like to a drastic way, drastically, like horrible stories you would hear. Oh, they caught, they were caught and they slaughtered their kids in front of them. Like things like this happened. So um we're very fortunate that, at least these things didn't happen. You know, my dad was almost gonna get kidnapped. We almost got shot. We almost didn't make it to Lebanon. Like all of these things could have happened, but thankfully it didn't.
Do you feel this also makes you a better CEO founder, knowing that you went through that tough shit and now, the business is just like easy stuff?
It's not necessarily easy. It's um at least it makes you appreciate the problems you're having. Like you start to appreciate that, oh, well, at least it's not, at least I'm not gonna, live or die based on going, road A versus road B. So, you're leaving it less to chance. It feels like you have more control over your life, which is it's a fantastic, fantastic thing, because in that life didn't give you control over your life. You don't know what's going to happen next. You don't know if they're going to stop bringing in food and your money is worthless. You don't know that. Here at least, you should probably not run out of food to buy. And the way that you would buy it is by earning, cash and exchanging that cash for food. At least that, at least, the basics of life are there, and it makes you appreciate the problems as a CEO, and the founder. You appreciate that you're working at least on problems that, you know, that matter, that you have control over to some extent, and they are good problems.
Right. You have a hell of a story. It also makes me appreciate the fact that the Canadian government extended you a hand, Um,
That's true.
Governments sometimes they don't want to extend a hand because they're like, if we accept them in the country, are they gonna be a positive sum game, or are they gonna be a net loss? Are they gonna consume our goods,
Yeah.
or and I mean, I would love to have immigration experts on my pod. My guess is that 80% plus of immigrants, if not 90, are net positive sums just by being in a country if you consume the products and so forth. But in your case, because I would like to form my own country in less than 15 years, you're definitely a net positive sum games. It's like nice pick. Canadian
Yeah.
government, you went and founded businesses, you hired people, you created lots of value. So if you were a government, how would you manage that program? How would you spot young Sorens and make sure that they thrive in your country?
I mean, it's very hard to be able to see, signs of you know you know true changers, or people who, you know fit, whether they are scientists, whether they are engineers, whether they are builders, so on. It's very, difficult to spot it early on. It's kind of, think about it this way. It's kind of your, you know, you know, if you're a founder, you can go and pitch 10 VCs, play the numbers game, and in a way, and hopefully you will get, recognized by one of the VCs that you have something of value to offer to the marketplace, that they should help you monetarily achieve that, quicker, on a bigger scale. It's if you're in immigration, you have basically like one shot, maybe two, but really it's just one shot. And then they are gonna also judge you, like, is this, and they usually judge it based on family, right? Unless, if you're immigrating, but for refugees, it's different story. It's usually a family. They see, okay, 3 brothers. That might be a good, working hand, or, they have 4 children, or they are they have different lenses that they look through it. But it's hard to spot these game changers unless they, unless you present it to them. You're kind of pitching them as well. Oh, this is my background. This is what I've done. And that's really your pitch. And if you are, a young individual who has done some things in the past, just, maybe a small sum of, creative achievements, you might present that as a case that you are a game changer when you're talking with, with the consulate in whatever country you are in, and they are looking at your application. This for refugees, it's such a big hit and miss. Like, they really can't tell who is gonna turn out to be fantastic, who's gonna turn out to be a mobster. Like, you have smart people that turn to be mobsters too, but you can't tell, right?
Especially at a young age, like if you would look at me at 15, I was this little delinquent, and getting drunk and high and getting in trouble. And look where I am today, an empathetic human being that wants to help other people. And I was about to say AI can help that, data can help that.
Mm-hmm.
Possibly, if you compare data, and I mean, there's so many data points, right? Like, and especially in Soren's case, like it's an odd bird. You don't often get Soren's. I mean, Charles, it's easier because it's like you can compare other historical data of Charles being at the Centre of Montreal with these 2 parents. And yeah, and the next steps could be probably, biometrics or something like that, checking the genes, because in my case it was just, I don't know, probably cortisol on my end and too much energy. I love justifying things in a biochemical way, if like we keep things very simple. I just had too much energy in me. And yeah, these are tough decisions because it affects people's lives and then their family, and it's like you live a very hard life there, and you're constantly pushing and being stoic, and is like, are they gonna accept me or not? Even when you got accepted, I'm pretty sure you were still like not in the reality. Is like, oh, this is not real, right? Like, I'm
After
not.
the first.
You didn't accept it at the first couple of
Yeah, that's
days.
true. Yeah. For the first day or so. You're right in ways that AI could help, but AI is only as good as the data that you give it, right? It's hard for you to present back to the pitch, right? Whoever you're pitching, like, if you pitch the AI and the AI has this massive database of who could turn out to be a champion and who's not going to turn out to be a champion.
The term in
You
your
know,
case, by the way, is prodigy. Prodigy is the case the term that I would use. And I think the guy that's been the nearest at scaling this was Peter Thiel, with the Thiel Fellowship, right? I think
mhm,
I mean, a lot of people talk shit on his program. Well, I mean, the book that was about Peter, which was obviously super biased, but it's been very successful. I mean, how old are you today, Soren? You're still
25.
young. 25, yeah. And you founded your first business like 21, so you would somewhat be eligible to his program at Till Fellowships, like at 18 years old, that getting paid by Till not to go to college. Um, I think he was successful at that. So it's like the question is like, how did he do it?
I I mean, he there's obviously an application process, right? Like you apply and then they judge you based on what you have applied as, and obviously you apply with an idea or with a company, and so there's already a sign that you might be something different than what the normal route usually people take. Like just the fact that you're thinking about different problems, and when they notice that there's a unique problem and you're proposing it as well in a unique way, like it's all about the language you present, the way you explain the problem, and the analogies you use to make your, you know, problem clear in the mind of the person who you are pitching. That matters to, because that's what you are going to be, you know,
Judge on.
judged on, right? So when you are in a country like Lebanon and you are going through the process, first of all, as an immigrant or a refugee, you're probably going through quite a number of things. And I'm talking specifically about spotting talent in children. If you're an adult, you can, find ways to make that case. But if you're a child, 15, 16, if your parents didn't put you through stuff to present your genius, let's say you are a hidden genius. If your parents didn't put you through stuff to present that genius, or if you have not, you know, given the opportunity to even shine, then you are a gem hidden in the dirt, and it's hard for these people to unlock. Maybe you'll do an IQ test. That's one way, right? Maybe you'll do a different aptitude tests, outside of just IQ. And then you'll notice, okay, this guy's or this girl is very smart. But also a lot of the times it has to do with that specific time and place when you present it. Like it's also an opportunity
And what
of
if you get
chance.
nervous, you know?
True.
What if you
A
don't
lot
know
of,
how to
yeah,
hold on your shit, you know? Like a lot of kids are very smart, but when you put them in new environments, I think parents should prepare them for that. They lose their shit and they don't do well.
yeah,
It's like, oh,
yeah,
who are these white people trying to get me to fill this white sheet? You know, it's like,
yeah.
but I think it's fair to say that your parents, they always cared about your education and they invested in you a lot, right?
Oh, yeah. I come from a family of, my father had five siblings, and all of them are doctors and engineers.
Wow.
Like all of my
Yeah.
father is
I could have
pediatrician.
guessed that.
Yeah. Yeah, all of them like anesthesian, surgeon, so on.
Wow.
That really impacted the way that I have grown up for sure. I grew up in a very science-focused environment,
Hmm.
and that has supercharged my curiosity in the different in different in different sciences. So in grade 7 is when you start taking physics and chemistry in Syria, and I was, already super curious and looking forward to the 7th grade so that I can explore more, physics and chemistry and more complex math. Like
Yeah.
I was in grade 4, 5, and I was already looking into that, and I already had, the foundation because, my dad tells me, "Oh, do you know how, the stars formed, and or do you know how this happened?" Or he used to, tease me
Love it, love it, love it.
in more, I guess, complex math problems
Yeah.
in exchange of cash. Like he was like, okay, this is a problem like more difficult than your grade, probably like 1 or 2 grades higher. And if you solve it, then I'll give you, some money. Not just an allowance given, right? You have to earn that allowance. And
Yeah.
that's kind of how I earned my allowance. I'm like, okay,
Dude,
well,
I
I
love
guess
it.
we can solve it.
Taking some notes here for my children's. I'm going to have in less than 2 years. That was round one. I think we should obviously do a round two to talk about OpenAuto and vocally. So yeah, thank you for the round one. We're gonna schedule something else, but until then, because I
Sure.
might publish that one, where can people find out more about you?
I have my personal website. You can just go to khetcho.com, or my last name. You'll find what I'm working on and my story. If you go to openauto.ca, you'll see what we're building. And if you go to vocally.ca, you see what we have built. So there's many ways you can find me on social media as well. My handles are all the same way, Souren Khetcho. And mostly I'm active on LinkedIn, but recently I've been more active on Twitter as well.